Welcome to today's webinar entitled Acetazolamide Clinical Trial Updates. My name is Andrea Miller and I am the president of CDG Care. I am honored to be here to moderate today's session and to introduce the CDG medical professionals who have joined us. Following the presentation, we will introduce and hear about the experiences of 5 families who are active participants in this study, and then open up the session for questions and answers. Our speaker today is Dr. Chang, who is joining us from Seattle Children's Hospital. Dr. Chang is an assistant professor of pediatrics and specialist in the Division of Biochemical Genetics at Seattle Children's Hospital. She is also a principal investigator of the acetazolamide clinical trial study. Also joining us are 2 of our clinical trial enrollment site principal investigators, Dr. Lamb, who is also on the faculty in biochemical genetics at Seattle Children's Hospital and head of the CDG Clinic in Seattle, and Dr. Edmondson, who is the director of the CDG Clinic at Children's Hospital of Philadelphia in Pennsylvania. It is my pleasure to turn the session over to Dr. Chang, who will share an overview of this important clinical trial opportunity.
Great. Thank you so much for that really nice introduction, Andrea. And thank you everyone for taking the time to be here today in the busy holiday season. So I wanted to talk more about our randomized controlled trial of acetazolamide for the purpose of treating ataxia in individuals with PMN2-CDG. And this is kind of a brainchild of Dr. Lamb and myself. And so we're really excited to share the study, what it entails, and also our very preliminary 6-month data. So here are our funding sources through CDG Care, FCDGC, which is funded partially through the U54 NIH grant, as well as Seattle Children's Research Institute gave us a small grant for this pilot study. So as a background information, acetazolamide has been FDA approved for a very long time, decades, for other indications such as diuresis and glaucoma, but it's a carbonic anhydrase inhibitor, which means that it just acts at the calcium channels in the brain. And the reason why we think that, at least partially why individuals with PMN2-CDG have ataxia symptoms is because these calcium channels are N-glycosylated. And so they become always active, and so that causes imbalance across the membrane. So by changing the pH across this membrane with acetazolamide, we're hoping to use the off-label in individuals with PMN2-CDG and hopefully see some improvements in terms of their ataxia symptoms. Acetazolamide has been used in other genetic channelopathy ataxia symptoms in those disorders as well. There was a preliminary study using acetazolamide done out in Spain in individuals with PMN2-CDG and saw pretty dramatic improvement in terms of their ability to walk and move around. And so that's what led us to design our study, which is a clinical trial comparing acetazolamide with a placebo, and that was not done in the previous study. So our current study has 3 clinical sites, and these are the same sites as in the FCDGC. It's at Seattle Children's Hospital, Mayo Clinic, and CHOP. Dr. Lamb and I are leads at Seattle Children's Hospital. Dr. Morava and Dr. Kosick are out at Mayo, and Dr. Edmondson is out at CHOP. So by hopefully having 3 separate sites across the country, participants can travel to the site that's closest to their home and more convenient for travel. So this is our study design. It's kind of a gold standard in medicine to do what's called a double-blind placebo-controlled trial, which means that both the investigators as well as the participants don't know if they're on the treatment or if they're on a placebo, which doesn't have any of the study drugs. And so our design is double-blind, it's placebo-controlled, and we try to randomize individuals into either the study drug, which in this case is acetazolamide, or placebo. And we're interested to see whether or not acetazolamide can improve the ataxia in individuals with PMN2-CDG. And we're trying to aim for individuals who are over 4 years old. And so the first part of the trial is really the first 6 months where individuals are randomized into either treatment or placebo. And then after 6 months, everyone can be on acetazolamide if they would like to continue with the study. And we're following these individuals out over 2 years as a safety extension to see how they do over time. So overall, we are hoping to collect data for at least 2.5 to 3 years. So the main objective of our study, of course, is to see whether or not acetazolamide has an effect on ataxia in individuals with PMN2-CDG. So how we measure that is by using this scale called the mini ICARS test. And we will compare, everyone will serve as kind of their own baseline control. So basically, at the time of enrollment, we'll do the mini ICARS score, and then after 6 months, we'll do it again, and we'll compare each individual to themselves, basically. And then we will take the difference in the score between the people who are on treatment and compare that to the difference in the score between the people who are on the placebo to see if there's any differences there. And the mini ICAR score has been used for a long time in basically scoring how severe the ataxia is in individuals with PMN2-CDG. The full ICARS is quite a long and tedious test, so we kind of simplified it down to only a couple components of the full ICARS score that has been shown to improve in terms of individuals who are on acetazolamide. So just briefly overview, this is what the mini ICARS looks like. We assess basically 3 components of how an individual is functioning, and that would be, how they walk, how they stand, whether or not they sway around with their feet together, with their eyes open or closed. So and then we see how they're coordinated. So that's finger to nose testing, whether or not they can move their ankle down their knee, and whether or not they can, flip their hands around when they're waving, and if they can trace this Archimedes spiral, which looks like a snail shell. And then finally, we'll kind of assess their speech in terms of having them repeat a sentence 3 times and see how many times they could repeat the syllables pata pata. So these are our secondary objectives, and this is kind of a busy slide, but just as an overview, we're looking to see if there's any adverse reactions, right, to acetazolamide, whether or not acetazolamide has any effect on PMN2 specific biomarkers, and to see whether or not we can find a cohort of people who don't respond to acetazolamide and why that is. The previous study showed that some individuals don't respond as well, but it's really speculation at this point as to whether or not there's specific differences in terms of their labs or maybe their genetic differences to why they don't respond as well. And just to clarify, these labs that we're doing at the assessments are all part of the natural history study for PMN2-CDG. So we're not doing anything additional for this current study, aside from that mini ICAR scale that we talked about previously. So here are our inclusion and exclusion criteria. Basically, if you have DNA or enzyme confirmed diagnosis of PMN2-CDG, if you're over 4 years old, and if you have some ataxia, and the ataxia is measured by a mini ICAR score greater than 0 at baseline. So the ICAR score, the higher your score, that means the more severe your ataxia. But as long as you have even a little bit of ataxia, you would qualify for our study. Things that would exclude you from the study are if you have very severe liver or kidney involvement that's unrelated, right, to acetazolamide. Because we know that acetazolamide is broken down in the kidneys and peed out through the urine, but it can also affect the way that other drugs are broken down in the liver. So we just want to make sure that we're tracking these carefully and to make sure there's no effect. Again, acetazolamide has been used for decades and it's a pretty safe drug. So we don't anticipate these differences, but of course, safety for all of our participants is the most important thing to us. So we always watch out for these markers very carefully. I do want to highlight one thing about the exclusion criteria. Some individuals may be on acetazolamide already, kind of off-label, and you would still qualify for this study as long as you have a washout period and haven't taken the drug 28 days before you start visit 1. And the last point is just very old drugs that most people aren't on currently that could interfere with acetazolamide. So this is our study design. Basically, I showed the slide already previously, but this is just a highlight of exactly what the participants will have to do at each visit. So the orange arrow on the left-hand side is basically the first 6 months of whether an individual is put on treatment or on placebo. This will involve at least 2 visits in person to one of the study sites. The first visit is kind of the big one where we do all the consent paperwork, do our exams, the mini ICARs, and collect labs. If you would like to enroll, then once we start the medication, we start at a low dose and we slowly go up every 2 weeks to the target dose that we want to get to. But each time we go up, we make sure that the labs are okay. So we'll have to check your lab, 2 weeks after you start the medication before we go up to the next dose. And then at the 6-month visit, it's the second time that you'll have to come to a site in person. And then we'll again do that dose titration if you decide to switch to acetazolamide, because we don't know for that first 6 months, right, whether you are on the treatment or on the placebo. So everyone, if they decide to go on acetazolamide at 6 months, will have to start that new titration over again. So this is just what we have so far in terms of our baseline data. We are aiming for 26 individuals to complete that first 6-month period before we can unblind it, which means the investigators and the participants can find out whether they were on acetazolamide or the placebo. Currently, we have 18 enrolled, and we have more in the works, but the data hasn't been inputted yet. We can enroll up to 100 individuals, though. So 26 is the minimum, but we can go as high as 100. So currently, you can see that we do have age and sex skew in terms of our participants. Most individuals in our study are less than 12 years old. And although we do have a couple who are over 12, and most of our participants are male. You can see that the majority of them have pretty significant ataxia as measured by the mini ICAR score in the second pie chart. So greater than 25, the higher the number again is more ataxia symptoms. And so that kind of makes sense why they would be interested in our study to see if acetazolamide has any benefits. And then finally, on the right-hand side, you can see that the race of the participants who are enrolled in our study are, majority of them are white. There are some other individuals as well as Asian participants. But we do make every effort to try to be as inclusionary as possible and try to reach out to underserved individuals to enroll them in our study. So we are kind of all comers, but we welcome basically anyone to kind of who's interested in our study to enroll. And in terms of the baseline clinical symptoms of the individuals who are enrolled in our study, I think it's interesting that ataxia and cerebellar abnormalities on MRI are seen in, not an insignificant portion. Sometimes over half of individuals have ataxia symptoms. And we know based on polling family groups at these meetings that ataxia does contribute to a large day-to-day sort of difficulties for these individuals and families. And so that's why we're interested in seeing whether or not this drug can help with these symptoms, because it can make a difference in terms of the activities of daily living for individuals with PMN2-CDG, especially as they get older, more independent, and more mobile. And in terms of baseline severity, this is rated by the NPCRS scale. And you can see I highlighted in red all the different components that could potentially contribute to difficulty in mobility and ataxia or wobbliness in individuals with PMN2-CDG. And we see in the next one, let's see. So we want to make sure that we're improving the ataxia in individuals with PMN2-CDG and not just, other components that are contributing to their inability to walk or have wobbliness, such as neuropathy, or extrapyramidal symptoms. So you can see that most of our individuals have at least moderate to severe, at least moderate or severe on this NPCRS scale. And these, across the x-axis, so across the bottom, you can see these are each participant in our study so far that have their data entered. And on the Y, so the vertical scale, you see the severity that they have in terms of the MPCRS scale. So most of them fall in that moderate to severe range. We are hoping to get an even distribution of individuals across different groups. So first we randomize individuals, separate people into less than 12 years of age or greater than 12 years of age. And then we kind of separate them out into how severe their ataxia is, depending on their mini ICAR scale. So on the right-hand side, we see that hopefully these numbers will be more equal, but as of now, we do have a younger skew and a skew towards individuals who have more ataxia in terms of a higher mini ICAR scale. So if any older individuals are interested in enrolling, that would be wonderful. And we did recently enroll an older adult as well, which we're really grateful that these families are interested in our study and so supportive. And then overall, this is just how individuals scored on the mini ICARs at baseline before the at the time of enrollment in the study. So you can see that it's rated out of 54, and the higher the score, again, the more severe the ataxia symptoms. So most individuals across the board, if we take an average, have pretty severe ataxia. And that's measured in terms of again, the scales divided into the posture and the gait, or the ability to walk and stand, the ability to perform small motor functions with the hands, as well as the ability to talk. And I wanted to highlight that individuals participating in our study have ataxia is a significant impediment to their daily activities because a lot of them have immediate falling upon standing. So I can imagine that if individuals have improvements in just that measure, like being able to stand for a longer period of time or being able to move around more independently, that would make a big difference to their day-to-day living. And that's what we're hoping that we'll see with the results of this study. So lastly, I just wanted to go over what we have preliminarily. The 3 individuals, well, we have 4 now, but one hasn't gone through the 6-month visit yet. So the 3 individuals that we have that have returned to our site at Seattle Children's Hospital for their 6-month visit. The average age is about 10 years old. You can see that they had pretty significant improvement in terms of their MPCRS score as well as their ICAR score for the first 2 individuals. And then the 3rd individual was not on study drug for a significant portion of time due to other reasons. And so there wasn't as much of an improvement and their scores basically stabilized. So I'll start with the left-hand side. The MPCRS is the severity of PMN2 CDG based on overall symptoms. So individual 1 improved from 21 down to 14 at their 6-month visit. And interestingly, we do have their clinical data before they enrolled in the study. So 21 is before they were enrolled in the study, 17 is at the time of enrollment, and then 14 is after 6 months of the study. And then again, individual 1, their ICAR score, which measures ataxia, improved from 32 to 28, lowers fewer ataxia symptoms. And then the PATA scale, which is the number of times you can repeat the syllables PATA, PATA, PATA in 10 seconds, also improved. So instead of only being able to repeat it 9 times in 10 seconds, they were able to repeat it 13 times in 10 seconds. And similarly, you can see comparable improvement for subject 2. And then 3rd individual, again, we kind of went over that. So, so far the data is promising, but again, we don't know whether or not these individuals were on study drug or the placebo. So we're very interested in getting up to that 26 participant number so that we can kind of unblind the study, and then both the participants as well as we can find out whether or not, individuals were on the treatment or on placebo. And so we can do a data analysis and see whether or not this drug really made a difference. So here is a video of one of our participants whose family graciously agreed to share these videos. We love this patient and this family. But you can see on the left-hand side is how he walked at the time of enrollment. And so he wasn't able to walk without his walker. I'm sorry, it's a little laggy. I think it depends on how the internet connection is with individuals. And so you can see the cones there. The testing is all standardized. So we measure out exactly how far individuals will walk as part of the mini ICARS test. And then they kind of turn around and walk back as part of their assessment. And on the right-hand side, you can see after 6 months of either on study drug or placebo, because we don't know yet, he's able to take independent steps. And he also improved in all of his other assessments as well. So we were really impressed and also really happy to see that he's doing so well. And then the last slide I wanted to show was another portion of the testing that we do. It's called the PATA test. And again, this is just the number of times you can repeat PATA in 10 seconds at baseline. Baseline, he did pretty well already. And then at 6 months, he is able to repeat more numbers of times the syllables. Okay. Great. So this is just an acknowledgement slide. It really takes a village, as you can see, to put a study like this together across 3 sites. So again, we want to really thank all of our collaborators, and of course, most importantly, the wonderful PMN2CEG participants and families who are so enthusiastic and have been so supportive of our study. And with that, I will open this up to questions.
Thank you, Dr. Chang. Were you able to hear the sound on your computer, Dr. Chang, for the PATA test? Because I think a couple people.
I wasn't able to hear the sound for some reason. And I thought that was because I was presenting, but it sounds like no one else was able to hear it either.
Right.
Here, let me see if I can.
Try again, just to see if you can get it to play louder on yours. And if not, we can work on that.
Yeah, let me try this again.
Start.
All right.
Are you able to hear that now?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. Oh, let me go back.
All
Great.
Yeah, that's great. Probably did better than I could do.
Okay, I would like to thank you so much, Dr. Chang, for that presentation. We're going to open it up to questions after we introduce a few of our families who are on the Zoom today, who are trial participants, who have also agreed to join Dr. Chang in answering any questions. If you have questions from a actually like clinical trial participant perspective. So we're going to ask them to introduce themselves, share a little bit of information about what location they're traveling to, if they need to travel, if there is travel involved, or if they're local to a center, as well as the age of their child and anything else they would like to share. So I'll open it up to, I see Claudia here. You can unmute yourself. There you go.
Hi. Yeah, Nick just went to get Oliver. Yes, we're in the trial. We go up to Seattle to see Dr. Chang and Dr. Lamb. And you guys just saw Oliver. And I can't remember what else you wanted me to say. Sorry.
How far do you have to travel? Is it a day trip? Do you take flights?
We fly. It's like a 2-hour flight. So it's not bad. And we really love Seattle. So we always turn it into some sort of a little family trip, usually. Come here, buddy. Come say hi. We're all kind of in our pajamas still, so forgive us. Come here. Come here. Say hi to everybody. They just saw you. How old are you?
14.
Hello, Oliver.
Hi.
Everybody wave.
Everybody on there?
Great. Great. Thank you, Claudia.
Yeah, you're welcome.
All right. I see Misak and Hagit have somebody here with us too. If you guys want to put your mute off and join us for an intro.
Hi, everyone. It's really nice to have this presentation. Yeah, we have also been traveling to Seattle Children's Hospital with Dr. Lam, and it has also been a day or two trip. We usually make it a 3-day trip also, just to be there for a little longer and take advantage of the nice Seattle locations we can visit. I'm not sure what else, Andrea, you want us to talk
about. How old is Aram?
Aram is 8.
Right.
Yeah, we've been on the first 6-month trial, and that was done a month ago. So when we traveled, we were able to get the drug. So now we know we are on the medication. We didn't know if we were on placebo or the medication before, obviously. But now that we are even on the lower dose of the medication and just doing the increments, we're noticing some small changes, which makes us think that we may have been on the placebo.
Great. We're excited to hear how well he does then over the next few months or weeks.
We are looking forward to it. Yeah.
Great. Bobby and Jeff, Liz.
Hi, everyone. We are based in Pittsburgh, and our daughter Danielle is 21. She just completed her 6-month study at CHOP with Dr. Edmondson in 3 days after her birthday, her 21st birthday. So she started the actual drug that following Monday, right before Thanksgiving. For us, Danielle loves to do sleepovers in hotels. So, Philly's only about a 5-hour drive for us, but normally we would drive up the day before, spend the night, and then see Dr. Edmondson in the morning, and then make the drive back in the afternoon. So hasn't been too bad from a travel perspective. And then, Danielle, we had some ups and downs throughout the trial in terms of she felt fine, but her labs didn't always cooperate as we adjusted the dosage. So when we completed the trial, she actually just had to maintain from about late July to November. She maintained at the lowest dose throughout the trial, but successfully, Dr. Edmondson has been able to bump her up since we've been on the actual drug. It's been about a week on the next level. So we'll recheck her labs right before Christmas. But we did get feedback from her school, her IEP meeting. There was a lot of comments about improvements that they thought they saw in terms of stability. I know here at the house, we've noticed some similar things, and speech was something that we noticed, clarity of her speech and thought process, just being able to get from her brain out what she wanted to communicate. Just seemed like there was a lot of an improvement over the last couple of months. So
yeah, and the other thing we noticed too was the handwriting definitely improved over the 6 months.
Yeah. Again, we're not sure what she had, but those are some things that we did notice, and hopefully they continue.
That is exciting. Thank you guys for sharing. I think we have one more family on who's able to share. Lewis and Heather.
Yeah, she's here. She's just hiding.
Okay.
So we have 2 kids, 12 and 10, that have participated in the study, and we went up to Mayo Clinic. We're in the Denver metro area, so it's been a couple of days drive for us, but similarly, our kids love being in hotels, even if we don't. And with both kids being on the study, we got more feedback on Nathaniel. And so we're inclined to believe that he was the one that for the 6 months was actually getting the drugs. And similarly, we kind of had the labs that we tried a higher dose and had to roll back. We finished our 6 months in October, and have been doing the drug for both children since then. Just got labs and got to increase both their doses as well. So it's been good, and we've been getting positive feedback, especially on Nathaniel so far. So
That's exciting, and that's a unique experience having 2 children in it and seeing the difference, and maybe potentially seeing one who was on it and one who wasn't, and so then being able to get on the actual drug. So you've already had your 6-month visit, is that right?
correct.
Right. So okay, exciting. And I have one.
I clarified that too.
Okay. And we have one more on the spot volunteer, since we have another family that was going to join us that couldn't make it. So I'm going to ask Riley to go ahead and do a quick intro.
Hey, I just didn't know if you saw us. So we are based in Utah. We have Emmett. He is 4 years old. I'm going to spare you from showing him. He actually tested positive for COVID a second time just a couple days ago, and he's got RSV. So he's a big, just boogery mess right now. So we actually traveled to CHOP. I think Mayo is a little bit closer to us, but we were actually life flighted CHOP in 2019 and spent 4 months there with M. So we know Dr. Edmondson better. For us, travel is a little bit more difficult because we're so far away. So it's usually about a week-long endeavor for us. We fly. Obviously, we are not driving cross country. But we have been, our experience on the medication, Emmett's 6 months is up at the end of January, beginning of February, and we'll actually do his 6-month visit at the CDG conference instead of traveling to the conference and then traveling to CHOP. Dr. Edmondson will do his evaluation in San Diego. So we're kind of excited for that. But M's experience on the medication or placebo, whatever he's on, has been a little bit different for us just because we seem to go up a dose and his labs kind of tank. And so we're not sure if it's this reoccurring sickness that he's had. Right now, we're trying to figure out, do we keep him on the medication because his liver kind of just went whack? Is it COVID? Is it RSV? Is it acetazolamide? And so our experience has kind of been low and slow. And Dr. Kudafa has had a lot of discussions with Mayo and Seattle on whether Emmett should go up in doses and stuff like that. So kind of similar to D, like his labs don't do as well. So Jason and I kind of have a hunch that we're on the medication and Emmett is just giving us crap. So I think we'll find out. I can see Lewis laughing at me, but we'll find out in February what we were actually on. If we're on placebo, I have no words because his labs have just been crazy. So that's been our experience so far. We have noticed before Emmett was completely non-ambulatory. He was non-weight bearing, couldn't walk, couldn't anything. And we have moved into a phase where he is sitting upright. He'll sit crisscross applesauce and he scoots himself backwards now. So he can actually move. So that's kind of my hunch that we're on the med. But like I said, we won't find out till February. So.
Thank you. Yeah, that's exciting news. And we're so sorry to hear that Emmett's under the weather right now. So hopefully he gets back on track real soon and
need him to get his act together.
Right. We would love to open the floor up for questions. Dr. Edmondson has joined us as well. So we have a few medical professionals on the phone and these families. who have volunteered their time. So feel free to enter your questions in the chat, or you can use the raise your hand feature emoji. I do see one question, it's sort of a question comment already, and it's from Maria in Mexico. She's very excited to hear about the progress and is wondering at some point someday, would this be possible to be a medication extended to all CDG types? I'm not sure if Maria can turn on her sound or type. I'm not sure what type of CDG your child has, but do any of our medical experts have any feedback about any possible expanding of acetazolamide in the future?
I guess I could comment on that. So hi, everybody. I'm Christina Lamb. So Dr. Lamb at Seattle. I think Dr. Edmondson and Chang are also on. But with regards to that, in terms of the underlying reason we think acetazolamide works, again, it's not really proven, is because of the decrease in glycosylation, and that's N-glycosylation of a particular channel. If that's truly the reason for it to work, then it is possible that this could be expanded to other kinds of CDGs that have to do with N-glycosylation. So ALG1 would be one type of N-glycosylated CDG. But we don't have any information, and it hasn't really been tried in any other types of CDG. And of course, the symptom of ataxia isn't, so ataxia is like imbalance and issues with, speaking clearly, for example, dysarthria, kind of similar. That would, in our thoughts, is that it would improve that. So if an individual with a different type of CDG doesn't have that symptom, then we wouldn't necessarily recommend that to be tried in that type of CDG. I'm not sure if Dr. Edmondson or Dr. Chang want to add to what I just said or say it more clearly.
I think that was great, Dr. Lamb. I'm going to go ahead and call on a few hands that are up, and we do have another question in the chat. Misak?
Oh, yes. Aram is definitely playing the iPad right now. But my question was very specific, since most of us, who are on the trial, who have participated in several of these visits, and of course, in between, there's remote visits, which makes it very, very convenient. However, something was brought up today that Dr. Edmondson and for Emmett has offered to provide, let's say, sometimes we as PMM2 and other CDGs travel to wonderful conferences like the one in San Diego, and even in Europe and others. Would it be possible to have some of these tests done at the San Diego conference? Even if it is, let's say, an enrollment test, the initial visit.
Dr. Lamb or Dr. Edmondson or Dr. Chang? Is that something we could look into? We could definitely talk offline.
Yeah, I think we should talk offline about that. Of course, the individual, so the person that is taking, the person with PMM2 would have to be present, as would the sites that they'll be enrolled in. So the physician that is enrolling, because we would have to do kind of the assessment in person. But yeah, that could be a consideration. I'm pretty sure, I don't think Dr. Chang, I'll have to ask Dr. Chang whether or not she's going in person, but I know that, I think that Dr. Edmondson and Marava and myself are going in person. So it may be possible, but we'd have to talk with CDG Care as well to see if we could get a location, that to, perform these tests.
It's a great idea. We'll definitely look into that for sure. Claudia, I'm going to jump to you. You have had your hand up for a little bit.
Yeah, I just wanted to add, after hearing the other parents talk, that especially when Dee's parents were talking, that we've noticed a lot of improvement with Oliver's thought process and speech as well. He's always been a kid who has progressed over the years, slowly, but always moving in the right direction. So it's been a little hard for us to tell, is it the medication or is it maturity in his age? So we go off a lot as well as what his teachers tell us and other practitioners who've worked with him, who see him not as often as we do, maybe every 3 months or so. And they've all noticed improvement, not only in his gait and the ataxia, but also his speech, speaking more clearly, and just the way he is remembering things from school and talking about it at the table, about climate. He was really into climate change right now. So just these, it's so fascinaning.
And I think sometimes it takes an external view to make you more aware of the changes, just even in growth. I experienced that in growth. I think that my daughter hasn't grown, and then someone sees her and they're like, she's huge.
Yeah. His orthopedist, who's known him since he was little, and she's always made his foot, his AFOs or his braces. He's always had, a very long pair that almost goes up to his knees. I can't remember the exact term for that. And the last time she saw him, she was so impressed with how much he's improved. And now she, so she's just made him the AFOs, the little ankle braces. So that was a big improvement. To hear that from her was really nice.
That is super exciting.
And we also went home with the actual medication at the 6-month mark.
Great. And how long have you been after 6 months now?
How long has it been? I'm horrible with timing.
That was October. So
yeah, maybe 2 months.
Maybe 2 months.
Yeah. So
great.
We've titrated up once, and so far everything has been okay.
Yeah.
That's exciting. Thank you for sharing that. I'm going to actually run to the chat here, because this is a question for the families. So any family that has thinks they have experience, they can answer this. From Katie Gregory. For anybody that has now been taking the actual drug, have you seen any improvements in focus, calming, body movements, being able to relax, or anything else, Katie, that I missed or you want to add? Is there any family that would just like to unmute yourself and share?
Yeah, Heather, when she saw that question, immediately thought of Nathaniel.
Yeah, just yesterday, based off from his blood work and the progress we've seen, we're fairly certain he was on the drug. Of course, you never know. But just yesterday, his PT had commented that his focus in accomplishing tasks has improved huge amounts. And his desire to do things independently, he used to be like, oh, I'm going to pull myself up. And then he just get real silly and, fall immediately. And, just to try to compensate for not being able to do whatever he needed to do. And she goes, he will do that. And then he's more intent on actually finishing the task appropriately. Probably because he has a little bit more confidence and the focus is better. So that was really neat to hear. And then his OT has commented on his handwriting. He used to, and it's still pretty bad. He's got real ataxic, very ataxic letters. And I remember probably a couple of years ago, he colored a picture for Lewis for his birthday, and Lewis got it. And it's he didn't do anything. And I was like, yes, there's color on there. You can see. And it was so light because he had such a light touch to the table, because he just doesn't have tons of feeling in those extremities, we think. But he's finally starting to be able to write letters that you can actually see on the paper, even if they are pretty wobbly. So that is, from a fine motor standpoint, a big improvement too.
I mean, some of his recent pictures that he's drawn have much clearer and much closer to staying in the lines. And so there's, because my birthday's in November. So we've had a year since that last drawing to see that noticeable improvement. And just when he does draw pictures or something like that, it's much more clearer what he's done.
It's a big jump.
Yeah.
And we've seen improvements with his speech as well. A lot I mean, everybody we see who has been separated from a while, like family or his speech therapist is like, I don't know what to do with him. We're going to move to this part and this part because he's just moving so fast in his speech over the last few months. So that's been super encouraging.
That is so exciting.
Yeah.
I'm going to ask Erin, who's been waiting patiently. Erin is actually a patient in Israel joining us today. So Erin, do you want to go ahead and unmute yourself and ask your question?
Yeah.
Also Daniel.
Yeah, so
Hi,
then
Daniel.
I wanted to ask a question. Hold on.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. I'm wondering if there has to be a lot of other people in our situation. We aren't close to any of the research centers, and it would be really a big, it would be very difficult for us to do this. But I wondered if it's worth these groups thinking of there being some sort of mini test that could be done locally with your pediatrician or your neurologist in another country, and and check after, or is that just an impossibility?
Yeah, I know Dr. Morava was not able to join us today, but I know that she has spoken to some physicians internationally about acetazolamide. I don't know if Dr. Lamb or Dr. Chang or Dr. Edmondson have done that, or if they can share what options there might be for international families. I think Dr. Edmondson is connecting.
Also see Dr. Chang trying to talk, but she's muted.
Yeah, I think I can try to take a stab at this question. So acetazolamide is available pretty much in most countries, I would imagine. It's a very commonly used medication for like altitude sickness and glaucoma. So if a physician wants to prescribe it off-label, they can certainly go ahead and do that since it's approved in most countries. And then in terms of clinical tests they can follow.
I'm sorry.
So
we would know which lab test to monitor.
Oh, yeah. I guess they can monitor it. I mean, we'd be happy to talk to individual physicians. I think probably it comes down to like a case-by-case basis. But we can certainly talk them through like the labs we monitor, as well as the clinical assessments that we do. The ICAR scale is readily published already. It's been used in many other settings. So we can certainly, share that information with clinicians as well.
Okay. So they would have, the best way would be to find a physician that would be willing to work with you, and you would communicate and decide what things to do, or is that what you're saying or not?
Yeah, it's that saying if they can find a physician who's willing to prescribe the medication off-label, I'm sure we'd be happy to reach out to, or they can reach out to us and we'd be happy to share that information. And then I think Dr. Lamb mentioned we'd be happy to share our protocol.
Okay, thanks very much. Maybe we have to see if it was okay with her, right? Thank you very much.
Yes, of course, and if Aaron and his brother and the whole family could join us again in California, we would love to have you here.
Oh, we'd love to
go. And of course, you understand that the physical trips is only 2 required. The rest of them can be done remotely as well. So if you guys are willing to participate in the clinical trial, we would like to have you in the clinical trial.
We would love to be on the clinical trial. I'm not so crazy about the air travel, but
nobody is crazy about it. I understand.
Yeah. We've had blood clots with Aaron, so it's not.
And we'd have to go business or first class.
Aaron, of course.
Well, we can't pay for first class tickets, but we said that we would love to see you again. We haven't seen you since 2016, and we miss you guys. So
we miss it too.
Yeah.
Aaron,
so we have a little bit of conversation going on over in the chat. So I want to just draw everybody's attention to that conversation while we have some online conversation too. Claudia, were you going to respond to Aaron a little bit?
Oh, I just wanted to be reminded, Aaron, how old you were. How old are you and your brother?
45.
45?
And this guy's 41.
Yeah,
Daniel,
41. Right.
Good to see you.
fantastic. Riley, you've had your hand up for a little bit.
Yeah, so I have two questions. One is more for Dr. Chang, Dr. Lamb, Dr. Edmondson. I'm just wondering how many of these kiddos, and maybe you can't disclose this information, but if you can, I'd love to know, how many of the kiddos on the trial have like an actual diagnosis of cerebellum issues? I know in Emmett's case, he has severe like cerebellum degeneration, and so that's where a lot of his motor issues come from. But I'm just wondering, is that a common diagnosis across the clinical trial? Does it not matter? More just a curiosity question, I guess.
Yeah, sure. So caveat is we only have the data that has been inputted so far, but so far, 44% of the individuals have cerebellar abnormalities that were seen on MRI.
Oh, that's so interesting. Okay, that's cool. My second question is more geared toward Lewis and Heather. You guys have two kids on the trial, and I'm just curious if you've noticed the same side effects or like, the same output with both kids, or is it one, is kind of progressing more than the other? Do you think one's on the med, one's not? How has it been watching two kids? That's what I want to know. Has it been kind of the same, or has it been like, oh, we think you're not on the med and you are?
It was fairly quick with the feedback from especially OT of Nathaniel's improvement, and we just were not getting that same feedback on Michaela, and so
Michaela has some neuropathy issues that have been happening, and so some of her scores have actually decreased, and so we're hoping with this new phase with both of them, actually we know for sure they're on the med. We're interested to see if we see any improvements in that area, because she has struggled quite a bit with just pain and discomfort from the neuropathy. So
I know from even when we started the study, Dr. Morava commented that she felt that Michaela would probably be bigger benefit from the seal. I'm not even going to try to say it, from the drug. And so now that we are fully both kids on the drug, and also for Nathaniel, like it did take a little bit of time. And so like the fact that we have only started barely getting stuff from Michaela doesn't surprise me if she was off, because like it was kind of a couple of months and then we started getting
it was
feedback.
probably at least 2, maybe 3 months before we started hearing or seeing anything significant for Nathaniel. But based on his jumps, I mean, that's there's a lot of progress in that time.
So we definitely feel like one was on and one was off.
So interesting. I just wanted to know.
It's very interesting to sit back and see. We
were just talking about that this morning, and we were in a very unique position within the study. Like I don't know any other family that has 2 kids in the study, and so to kind of see that both at the same time.
Thank you, guys. A little bit, we have about 2 more minutes. A little bit about the side effects. There was a question in the chat, and there's a lot of chatter going on about some increased urination. Does anybody want to share specifically any other challenges or side effects or concerns that they have noticed about participating in the trial? That's great. No.
We noticed that both kids, like even Michaela, now that we know for sure they're on the drug, have been kind of tired. But with Nathaniel, that went away after maybe 3 weeks or so. And we just hit that with both of the kids on. We just hit our about 3 weeks on. But that is one thing that we noticed in the very beginning, was just being more tired. And it, for Nathaniel, it was just he went to bed faster, which is always a good thing. And Michaela's been sleeping later, but we homeschool, so we can be pretty flexible with that. So, but like I said, for him, there's very minor change when we for sure jumped onto the medicine. And then for Michaela, we'll see what happens in the next couple of weeks.
And we
But
just increased
that was
doses, so there might
pretty
be some-
much the only difference.
Yeah.
Like, and that was just for a short amount of time. But the urination, that sticks around.
Okay, few more hands up. I don't know if they're just left up from before. Claudia and Aaron, you guys have your hands up. Did you have any additional last minute adds to the session? No? Okay. What I'm going to do is I'm going to share a screen again, just so everybody, because we are recording this and we're going to share it, and we want to make sure everybody has the contact information at the end of the webinar, so that there are, again, 3 clinical trial sites that are enrolling. Here are the web address or the email addresses for each of the individuals if you're interested. And I would also say, for Aaron, for your family, you can also email your question to any of these email addresses. So if you guys are there, screenshot this. And if anyone needs medical travel assistance in order to get enrolled into the trial or anything, we do have funds available for that. So we would like you to please do not hesitate to email us at info@cdgcare.org. And we just want to thank our medical professionals for putting this webinar together and for taking the time on this busy Saturday to share this really exciting news. Thank all of our families who are participating in the trial, who were able to join us, or even those who weren't. And thank you for sharing your experiences. And if you want to open it up, if there's any last minute questions or comments, if you have anything, Dr. Chang, before we officially end the recording.
Yeah. Nick, go ahead. Sorry, Nick wants to say something.
Yeah, I just, it's interesting. It sounds like a lot of the participants feel that they're on the medication. I've kind of noticed, and which I know can't be true. But I think that also, even if we find out that, participants were not actually on it and shown improvement, to me, that still means that, this clinical trial was a success, because, without families doing this, we'll never know. And that's the whole purpose, is to find out. And if we find out, hey, it's not working, then I'm still fine with that. Because, I remember when Oliver was young and we were in the dark and we wanted to try everything under the sun to make him better. This gives hopes to those families that, hey, people are doing something, and there's good things happening, because for a long time there wasn't anything happening. So I just want to say thank you to everybody.
Yeah. Thank you. Dr. Chang, do you want to share one more time how we can get to that point of being able to know when someone was on placebo or if they were on the actual medicine?
Yeah, so once our first 26 participants get through that first 6-month period, we can basically unblind the study and figure out who was on the placebo.
So we're looking for at least 8 more families, 9, 10.
I think, yeah, probably. Well, the more the merrier, I think. But yeah, we're aiming for at least 8 more, I think. And I will agree with Nick that, we don't know whether or not acetazolamide is making a true difference. But I think there is this undercurrent hope in that there's more progress being done in terms of treatment for CDGs in general, because as we all know, there is no medication off-label or otherwise that has been shown to improve any of the symptoms in CDGs. So ours is hopefully one of many, and I know that there's several in the pipelines currently looking at therapeutics interventions for different types of CDG. So hopefully this positive trajectory will continue to be ongoing, and we get the word out and get more people interested in this field as well.
That is exciting. Yeah, 2022 is going to be an amazing year. Riley, did you have a last minute comment?
I do. I'm just, this kind of goes along with what Dr. Chang was just saying, but I'm just trying to figure out why there aren't more families on the study. Is it because they don't know, like, you know what I mean? And there's not really a solid answer to that, but Andrew, I've seen you trying to promote it and I've seen everybody trying to promote it. Is it these kids are, you know, trying to get on the study and they disqualify through blood work and things like that? Is it families just don't know that acetazolamide is available as a clinical trial? But like, what can we do on our end as the families to get more kids involved in this? Because I am not a patient person and I really want to know if Emmett was on the med or not on the med. So tell me what I can do. Let's get more families going.
Yeah, so I mean, we have so many channels of communication, and the only thing we can do is just keep sending out information. And all of the families on this call today and anyone who sees our messages, you are all ambassadors of sharing information. So there are networks of CDG families that connect and not necessarily on Facebook. So for example, I know Riley, you received information about the trial and about opportunities with the trial from another family. It wasn't directly through social media. And you said, well, I didn't even know that that existed. And so by us just continuing to ask all of you to share the information, even on your own, you know, connections with different families, that's going to be the best way to get the message out. And as far as families participating, as a patient advocacy group, CDG Care can definitely share that there's a lot of decisions that go into participating in a clinical trial. And it's a very personal decision. And so we just ask that families go ahead and contact the contact email addresses from each of the centers so that they can learn more about it. And sometimes there's a stigma that it could be a really complicated process or a very negative process, or you're getting poked a lot and you're kind of like a guinea pig. But as Dr. Edmondson, I know, has said many times, all of our participants in trials are the pioneers for the future for treatments and therapies for CDG. So without everybody on a placebo, if you need to be on a placebo or on the treatment, we can't make these advancements alone. So we do it together as a community. So I think that that's what we need to do. And that's what the Amore Fund and CDG Care are trying to do today, is to put something together that we can share so that we can hopefully get the last of those families enrolled in it. So we would again like to thank our presenter, Dr. Chang, for providing this exciting update of the acetazolamide clinical trial. We also thank the medical professionals and trial families who joined us to share their experiences and observations and to help provide education around what being a clinical trial participant involves. And lastly, we want to thank all of our attendees and viewers of this webinar who we hope will feel inspired to become involved in either this trial or one of the upcoming CDG or NGLY1 trials in the coming months. Please refer to the contact resources on this slide if you would like to get in touch with a clinical trial site for more information or enrollment in this study. And we've also included our CDG Care email address in case you need to reach us to inquire about applying for medical travel assistance. Thank you for your support, and we wish you all a very healthy and happy holiday season.